Okay, welcome everybody to this evening's ACY Securities webinar, Forex Trading Live Market Analysis. My name is Duncan Cooper. Before we move along, if you can read through the risk disclaimer. For those on our YouTube live stream, if you're there, I can't see the chat, but you can use the link that I gave, so you can come into the room and chat with us. So it's entirely up to you, but I can't see the chat. So please read through the risk disclaimer. All right, let's move along. So if you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities. I'm a full-time trader. I've been mentoring clients for more than 10 years, trading the Forex market for more than 15 years now. If you want to contact me, my email is on screen, duncan.cooper@acy.com. So anything about the webinars, just give me an email if you've got a question. If you want to follow me through the week, acy.com website, market news tab. Find my analysis there as well on our YouTube channel, ACY Securities Australia. And if you want to connect with me personally, you can get me on Twitter and LinkedIn on those handles on screen. As well, through the week, I'm providing analysis in our Telegram channel. If you want to get access to that, just simply contact Nathan Bray. And as well, if you want to get access to my chart layouts, templates, and indicators, just contact Nathan, the ones that I use in the webinars. He will organize that and probably set you up personally. Just give him a shout. I'll put his details in the chat now. So any questions about what we're doing in the webinars, the Telegram channel, setting the charts up, or even opening an account, he's the man to just send an email, give him a phone call. There's his details in the chat. All right, so first up, let's have a look at the news coming out this evening or today. We do have a minor item from the Eurozone at 8 p.m. These are Queensland time. German NZDJPY economic sentiment, but then we've got the US Empire State Manufacturing and PPI data coming out at 11:30. PPI data might be volatile, but maybe not. Market may have already priced in that. If it's going to be a figure that maybe shows that inflation is peaking, maybe the market's already priced that in. If it rises and shows that inflation hasn't peaked, then I'm sure we will be swinging. The US dollar will be swinging the other way. So, if you want to trade ahead of those items, just be aware of what is coming out, so you know what the risk is. So I'm just going to talk about levels I'm watching. And some things are turning right now, but it's as to whether you want to be in when those news items come out. So as well, this is not a trade recommendation service, it's analysis. You have to decide what you want to trade and how you want to trade it. You're all responsible for your own trading decisions, okay? All right, I'm just going to use my price action charts. I might flick back to my other ones, but first two pairs I want to look at tonight is just the Aussie dollar. Now, I was hoping this was going to hold here where it was closing. Had a very quiet day yesterday, but it's popped up. It's broken above resistance. We have monthly, weekly, and day resistance here at 66.71, 66.81, 66.99. So it's broken above the 67 level. This range is the monthly chart range. That's the last lower top on the monthly chart. Let me go to the monthly chart to show you. Last lower top to last lower bottom. So we're traveling up that range. So the monthly trend remains down. The weekly trend really, from the bigger swings, is down, and we're at the 62 level. So I know we're having a strong rally from last week on a lot of these pairs after the CPI data, but it is just a rally on the monthly chart. It's a bit difficult at the moment. Which way do you go? Do you trade the day chart trend, or do you wait for some form of pause and break back down to the downside if it's going to come? So it is a little bit difficult. How do you play it? I'm looking just to structure myself in the long-time trend, but I'm looking for 4-hour structure to kind of form to prove to me that price is stopping. So on the 4-hour chart at the moment, folks broke last week's high, and I was looking at maybe trading at the 67 level, but now we popped above last week's high. So we're coming up to the 62 level. So the 62 level, back to the daily here, is definitely an area where we could hold at, form the lower top on the monthly chart. But we're going to maybe have to give it a couple of days to start to form some structure on the 4-hour chart to prove to you that, okay, maybe we're getting a turn. All right. Of course, you can be very aggressive. Get my 15-minute chart to come up. You could be looking for a trend line break. Wherever the current trend line is, it's probably quite aggressive. It's a little bit too aggressive at the moment, but at some point, hopefully you can just draw in a less aggressive trend line. We haven't quite yet either hit the 62% level. So we may need to just watch for the 62 level to get touched. Doesn't have to touch the 62, but you want to start to see some breakdown of price action here to prove to yourself that we're stopping there. Okay, so it may well do that today. Might do that tomorrow for you at that area. Aussie yen. There's a few pairs looking very similar: Aussie yen, Euro yen, and New Zealand yen. So if you drop to your day charts, this is rather range bound, but it is coming back up from a lower bottom here. Okay. And on the 4-hour chart, I've got the fib drawn across last week's range. So hopefully you can see at the 62, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3 4-hour tops. There's 4-hour broken support there, which we've touched on the current candle. And we're moving back below the 62. So are we moving down? Is corrective to the 62 to move down. So you can make a judgment call on that yourself. In terms of an entry, you could be looking for a trend line break. We don't have that yet. So you can watch that, see whether you like how it's forming for maybe a move back down. What is your entry technique? Okay. All right, tomorrow we may see this below 94. We may come back up tomorrow and 94 becomes resistance. Okay, so if you don't get in today, of course, when the news comes out, price might fly up, but without the news, it does look like we're having a 62% rally there. You can see candles are starting to want to trade down a little bit. Just want to go back to the Aussie, see what it's doing. All right, Euro yen is looking very similar to the Aussie yen. I highlight this area today in the Telegram. I highlighted 145, which wouldn't have lost your money, hopefully, if you managed it. Selling a breakdown from 145. And the next level was up here at 145.36 to 145.49. It's missed it by a pip. So do you start to see price action break down from this area? Do you see the setup that you like to maybe initiate a sell? So what I'm seeing is day charts coming up from our lower bottom. This fib range is last week's range. So we've just about hit the 62 level. This line is broken daily support from over here. So, I mean, we might still come a little bit higher into that area once more for a further retest. We haven't quite hit resistance yet. But that's an area I'm watching for failure. When I'm looking at an area that I'm watching for failure, I like to be able to maybe construct something nice and tight. Can't really do that quite yet in the area because obviously it's dropping down. It's already down 36 pips. So whilst I'm watching, I would love to be able to get a tight entry up here. I might have to wait a while. I might have to look to tomorrow to maybe see if I can get a tight entry failure at the 145 level. So I might be looking at a level, but then can I construct an entry that I like? Is price action telling me that I think it's turning? Can I construct an entry and where is price at that point? So tomorrow I might, if I don't see something later in the day where we might come back up for a further stab and failure, and I might be able to position a tighter entry, tight trend line break or something, I might have to look tomorrow maybe for a failure at the 145. I'll have to wait and see what the news does later. Euro dollar. Now I was watching this level. I did a video today suggesting that we could be stopping here. But of course, for whatever reason, prices move through. quite strongly. So I'm sure a lot of stops were getting triggered when we moved above the area. So we could, over the next 1 to 2 days, because we don't know where price will be by the end of today, we could by the end of today or tomorrow be back below this area of resistance. It's 130, 103.40, 103.49. So it's monthly, weekly resistance, and 103.68. So yes, we're above 103.68, but we might not be by the end of the day. So we might see a false break. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, trading to the upside, obviously we're in a clear day chart trend. We're in a clear weekly trend at the moment, but the monthly trend is still down. So I was looking at this major monthly low that we broke below, 103.40, to be resistance. Now, at the moment it's not, but it doesn't mean to say it won't be in a couple of days. So don't forget where the monthly trend is. This is coming up potentially to search for a lower top. Slightly, like you say, could just be a false break at the moment, stops going off. We often see price move above a level or below a level, and it's simply stop hunting. And once all those stops have gone, nobody else is buying in this scenario here. And then we're back below the level because we didn't want to entertain the level yesterday. So a whole bunch of stops have gone off. All right, so this isn't where I want to be a buyer because it's way too high up in the overall movement up. All right. At the moment on the 15, Slavia saying dojis. I don't know if they've got dojis here, but they were definitely trying to hold here. We're having a bit of a 15-minute candle up, 15-minute candle down, 15-minute candle up and down. We're definitely starting to hold at around about the 104 to 110 level in the short term. Of course, if you want to be aggressive, then starting to see maybe a price failure underneath 104, or you see price move below 104, it comes back up 104, watch to be resistance. So even tomorrow or later today, we start to break below 104, we could then see 104 to be resistance. Now, I know this is in a severe uptrend at the moment. All right. But maybe we're just false breaking this major resistance area. There's some imbalances here that need to get filled. And if I just drop it to the 4-hour chart, one of the reasons why I was looking in this area, and we did put a lower top in before those stops got turned on, is there's a number of imbalances on quite a number of these pairs from when we had the job figures come out and then the CPI data come out. I think this was the job figures. This is the CPI data. All right, so these big long candle movements, price will often come back to these areas. So there's even an imbalance today. So there's a number of imbalances that we could be feeling back to the downside if we see price tip its hand and it wants to trade to the downside. So, you know, you need to have a clear setup that you're looking for. And then you trade your setup. Like I was explaining in my webinar last week about forward testing, a strategy, 20 trades, 40 trades, 60 trades. What is your entry? What is your strategy? What is your entry when you see price trading up from a level, down from a level, okay? Try to be consistent. So we may see a false break of 103.68 or not. I mean, price might come back down to 103.68 and be support for a much longer move up. All right, so you have to weigh up what trends do you want to be trading in line with. Daily and weekly are up at the moment. Monthly is still down. So is this just corrective? Searching for a lower top on the monthly, okay? All right, so that's the euro dollar. We've covered the euro yen. Pound dollar, we'll cover the pounds, and then we might go and just have a look at the dollar index because the pound is a little bit weaker. Like the Aussies moved to a new high today. The euro dollar's moved to a new high. Yes, the New Zealand dollar has as well, but the pound hasn't. And we had a gap down from Friday's close here. This is my 15-minute chart. And it just managed to come back up to fill it here. and we're not able to come up and take out trade above last week's high. So this is a lot more difficult for the pound dollar to move up to new highs this week than some of the other pairs. So is that a bit of a telltale sign? So what I'm showing you here is we did have a month up here. This isn't not a major top like this one back here, but this is an area where we did have a month up. So that's why I've got my fib drawn there. And it is a major weekly range. And 79% levels at 1866. Oh, sorry, 118.66. So we've been fractions short of that last week. And I've been watching this 1760 level because that was a key level of support that got broken. It's weekly. What was support got broken, became resistance before we moved strongly down. And we've been below that level, been above that level this week. That's a level I'm clearly watching. I said that on the weekend in my weekend analysis. 1760 could become a focal level of resistance once more over the next week. Slightly saying, what does the comparative weakness of the pound suggest? Well, to me, it just suggests that, you know, the economy in England and the UK isn't great. And I did see a headline saying that the Chancellor from the UK was saying that they would have to keep tax rates high or even change the threshold so that they would be able to pull in more tax, and they would also have to taper back spending. So that didn't necessarily affect the pound dollar on the open too much, but it's definitely not trending up as strongly this week as the other pairs. So what that may suggest is that if we do get a turnaround, whenever this US dollar corrective phase ends, the pound dollar we may see a sell-off in the pound dollar sooner rather than the other pairs, because we're not going to new highs this week. So maybe we topped out last week and we can't make a new high this week. But, you know, the weekly trend is up, but I'm looking at that fib range, and the day trend is up. But you can see we had an inside negative day yesterday. We did close back below that 117.60 level that I'm discussing. However, we are back above it today. So it isn't quite showing its hand. I mean, it was showing you a lower top. We could have maybe some consolidation structure forming here, where we often see, if we're putting in a final top, like a monthly lower top, for example, we can often see like false breaks of the 4-hour tops, where those stops are getting tripped, where there's that liquidity trap, where those tops are getting broken, retail traders are getting stopped out of their sales. They may be also then buying because they think this is just going to go higher. Then if my short didn't work, I must have to buy because price is going up. And ultimately, they just get kind of whipsawed and false broke out of their trades at the top. So I'm just looking for structure to tell me maybe we are or we aren't topping out. Yes, we could get up to that 118.66 level. So at the moment, last week's hike, we might see a false break there. We might see a false break at this 4-hour top, but you know, can we see a clear maybe 4-hour structure to the downside and then sell a rally? All right. That to me would get me excited about, okay, are we putting in that monthly lower top? Of course, you know, maybe the US dollar has topped and we just keep heading up. So I'm not open to the idea of that, but at the moment, I'm trying to think logically and say, okay, we're only a month up at the moment. So let's not get too excited, because we could be having a month down next month. But we'll just have to wait and see how things transpire over the next week. So there on the pound dollar, you know, that 4-hour top there, you know, if we start to want to hold below that top, let me just put it in 118.29. Yes, we're pretty much at that level right now. So, you know, if we start to want to close below that level, do we see a retest and failure later in the day of that level, trend line break, something like that? I'm pretty sure as well, if you use the whole range from last week's high at the moment to yesterday's low, there's a 79% level there. So, you know, maybe we can start to trade and deal for a while underneath that resistance level. And then you see maybe a trend line break structure form. And then if you like that level, obviously you might start to see a setup that you could trade. But it's definitely, it's not as aggressively going up as the other pairs. I'm just looking at my other screen. Euro dollar is starting to drift down. You know, my swing point break entry that I taught on the 15-minute chart, we're having that right now on the 5-minute chart. You know, whatever you want to use as your entry. If you're wanting to trade from there, what is your entry? All right, 5-minute chart trend is breaking down. 15-minute trend at the moment is still up. All right, so we're seeing a little bit of weakness there. It depends how aggressive you want to be. If you think, okay, that's been a complete false break of 103.68, and you know I want to try and sell this high up as possible before it moves back down below 103.68. But just depends what kind of trader you are, how aggressive you want to be. There's no guarantee that this won't turn around and move higher up, but there's no guarantee that that won't happen wherever you decide you want to trade. Okay, so like I said in my webinar last week, there's always a random distribution of wins, losses, and break-evens for whatever technique you're using to enter. You just have to have a clear approach of how you want to enter and keep doing the same thing. So, all right. I want to go over now to, well, let's cover the pound yen. Not really watching the pound yen too closely because it's in this horrible area of support and resistance. So out of the pairs at the moment, this is mine less favored. So I would like it to have some clear room to rally or trade with a trend where I'm not trading into resistance or supports. You know, any rally that I might see up here is moving into resistance. And then I might have to try and trade back down through those areas. So I just like to see this away from support and resistance. You know, can it, for example, break down below here? Clearly. And then that becomes resistance and you're not stuck in this area up here and then trade down. So it's just not in a friendly, user-friendly area for me. All right. So I'm just leaving that pair alone at the moment. Might change my mind if things start to further decline. But I think some other pairs look a little bit better. All right. So the dollar index, we know the pairs to the US dollar are moving up. So that dollar index is clearly moving down on the monthly. It's had a very big monthly candle down. So maybe it is getting to the, you know, if you match that candle, say to this candle, they're very similar. And look, all the candles around, all the long ones, the big ones, we're pretty much at that range where, okay, we've probably done the range. Of course, it could get bigger, but if you look at what normally happens so that you can start to make a decision, we may have done potentially the range for the month to the downside. Well, yes, we could move lower down. I mean, we could maybe be heading down to this area of support here. So it's worth having that on just so you know where it is. So nothing's changing in terms of trend here other than we're just having a correction. But of course, on the weekly and daily, they're down. Now, as I mentioned this earlier today in my euro dollar video, you know, if we can move back above 107.67, start hold above there for maybe a day, then we might be starting to form some support there to move back up the range. But at the moment, clearly, it's not doing that. And I'm sure the daily has moved to a fresh low today, just based really on the euro dollar moving up, because this is more than 50% weighted for the euro dollar. With that moving up, this is moving down. So, Now, if you were watching this and thinking about, should I be trading up or down these pairs to the US dollar? On this day chart, there's that inside candle. If we start to trade above the top of that inside candle, which would be, for example, the bottom of the inside candle here on the pound, and the bottom of the inside candle on the euro dollar, then we might have a reversal, because I was looking at this holding here to break the inside candle low to start to confirm the reversal. So that hasn't occurred yet. But if we see that on the dollar index, if we trade above that inside candle, we could well be coming back up to retest monthly support resistance here, support that got broken. All right, so watch the structure of this, because if we do break that high, that's probably going to be a telltale thing. There are some imbalances here on the dollar index. There's imbalances on the pairs to the dollar. All right, so there's an imbalance there that maybe needs to get filled. There's another, if we look at the dollar index at the moment, there's an imbalance here. All right, and then there's a further imbalance down there. So let's just add them together. There's a whole imbalance here. If this thing will stay where I want it to stay, just there. There's also an imbalance it's been a little bit filled, so the imbalance is about there at the moment. All right, so there's a couple of imbalances there that potentially should get filled. All right, so if we do break above that top of that blue candle, that could be a telltale sign. On the S&P 500, if you go to your monthly charts, there's the monthly range, lower top, lower bottom. Yes, we're moving up. Monthly trend's not changing. I know at the moment as well, it's quite funny. Indices is rallying, but there's lots of jobs going on, aren't there, within the tech sector at the moment. Wouldn't you think that would be more negative? But this is just corrective. Weekly trend, in fact, there's a lower top to a lower bottom. So I've got the fib drawn across the monthly 62 level. I could draw one from the weekly high to the low, and I get overlapping fibs where prices rally to. So maybe that is the rally top. All right. So if this starts to sell off, we may well see the US dollar start to pick back up. All right. And there is a little imbalance just there that we are filled half of it. Doesn't mean to say we're going to fill all of it, but at least we've come up to, fill an imbalance of some form there. So I would just be watching. If this starts to sell back down, that was obviously the CPI data day. If we suddenly trade all the way back down, because there's an imbalance we've been filling to the upside, and there's a definite imbalance to the downside there. All right, that needs to be filled back the other way. So we may well see a corrective move. All right, so I'm just going to go back through the currency pairs that I haven't covered the Aussies. Just have a quick look what's going on. So we're definitely moving below 104 on the euro dollar. Pound's just holding at that for our top area. All right, let's go through the New Zealand's. So New Zealand yen is looking very similar to, say, the Aussie yen, the euro yen. It's coming up from a lower point, failed nicely in this weekly resistance area, weekly high over here, lots of weekly highs through here, weekly high there, that was the first one. So weekly resistance level, and I was suggesting we might be failing here to move down to weekly support. So are we coming up to put in a lower top? This is last week's range, 62 level. Yes, we could come up and re-tag 86.21. think we've been up to pretty much 86 today. So depending on what the news does, when we are selling down from the 62 at the moment, but that would be an obvious area to keep your eye on for further failure. Where, that could be the area where the market puts in the lower top on the day chart for the next move down. So of course, to move down to retest last week's low. All right, that sort of affair. New Zealand dollar is trading up to some day resistance at the moment. This is the last lower top on the monthly chart. So obviously we're correcting back up. Weekly trend, weekly and monthly trend, they're the same. They're both down, so it's corrective at the moment. Of course, if we take out that top, 64, 68, well, it's no longer corrective unless we form a double top. So looking for where could the lower top be forming? Assuming that this is what's happening, price is coming up to put in a lower top. When we put in the last lower top here, price action structures in an uptrend when we're putting in the lower, when we start to form the lower top point for the monthly chart. So I'm just going to be looking. I've got my day resistance at 61.61 at the moment. The next level is monthly resistance at 62.04 from over this low here, or a little bit above the 62. See, the last two trading days, we've been holding at this daily resistance, 61.01 and the 62% fib. Today, something's come out when the euro dollar popped up. So it's said US dollar weakness for whatever reason, and it's popped above the, the high of last week. So I will be watching at the moment the high of last week, because if we start to see a complete failure of last week's high, that could be maybe the signal that we're definitely in the area where we could put the weekly or the monthly lower top in. But we're of course trading above last week's high. So, and we did put a lower top in. So it's annoying when you get maybe a signal from a lower top. So you get short and then it spikes up and takes you out. And that's why I really like my 100 pip entry technique, because at the moment I wouldn't have got spiked out if I was taking a trade there. So if you do have your stops too tight when you're trying to pick a top, if you think price is in a very good area, it can get frustrating. So I would just be starting to watch the 4-hour chart here. Do we false break last week's high? 62 level here at 61.02, 61.01 is that daily resistance that we moved above. So can we start to false break this area? Do we start to deal below 6100 over the next couple of days? Do you start to see 6100 be resistance? Because it has been over the last 2 trading days starting to want to do that, but then of course something's popped it up today. So is this just a whole bunch of stops going off? All right, so just monitor that. It's in a nice area, but of course that 4-hour structure is still up now. All right, Canadian. Now, is this a left shoulder, head right shoulder? I don't know if anybody is shorted up here for that possible pattern. Still needs a lot more proof in terms of a long-term, if we're going to have a long-term move this way, this being a left shoulder or right shoulder, because of the weekly trend and the monthly trend, this is the monthly chart at the moment. So the monthly trend is clearly up. I mean, that could be a final top, but it's very unlikely that this is just going to keep going down here without putting in a corrective rally and at least have a rally and put in a lower top of significance on the weekly chart. All right. So the last significant bottom is here. The last significant top is here. All right. And hopefully you're starting to see this is weekly support, 13223. See how we heavily sold down and we're not touching that level? Is this support for a move back up? Is it a move back up to keep the weekly trend to go to a higher top, or is it to come back up to put in a lower top? But you know, this is clear support here, 132.23. We've actually broken above yesterday's high today, showing some possible support down there. Now, what I'm seeing this left side here, we've completed an imbalance, filled some imbalance here. All right, there'll be more imbalance within that candle on, say, the 4-hour chart. So any imbalance that was in that area, let's go to the 4-hour chart for you people that like the imbalances. All right. $132.80, 132. All right, just trying to work out where 132.80 is. It's here. So as we're moving up here, there would have been, all right, an imbalance here. And there was another imbalance on the next candle. So I'll just join both together. So we come back to fill this imbalance here. All right, on the 4-hour. And there's a little bit of consolidation structure there as well. On the daily, for those that like the order blocks, all right, there's an order block there that's holding. We've come back to fill an imbalance. We're on an order block. All right, we're on, and also we're a fraction short of that weekly support level. All right, because this was where we broke above here and here, came above, sat fractionally above support, and then boom, it went up. So this is where a whole bunch of buying started. So we've come back to the point where a whole bunch of buying started last time. Is this where we're getting support now for the next move up? So let's just drop it down the 4-hour chart and have a look at the current structure. You know, we do have a higher top, and we've defined a very good level of support. We've been moving down to a 79% level here. Is this where we're moving up? All right, so I know I'm at a very good level of support. It's a question of, what do you want to have a go at that ahead of the news coming out, or do you want to wait till after? But, you know, we might not be able to get back down to 79 after the news, but you might start to see it move up. You look for the next 4-hour pullback. That's definitely at a good level of support. And trading back to the upside, I can see on the 4-hour chart, there's an imbalance that needs to get filled in through this area. There's an imbalance in this area that's put in for you. There's an imbalance here. There's quite a large imbalance there. Back up to the upside. So the first one here, and there's resistance there. So that resistance is this level here, where we were contemplating, was this a double, triple bottom? We've had an imbalance as we broke south. So there's that imbalance to fill. There's another one up there that's not showing on the day chart, but it's showing there where I put it in on the 4-hour in that area. So we could be finding support here. So look on the 4-hour chart, maybe for, you know, move up. So you've got a higher bottom, higher top. Look for a pullback to 62.79% level for a move back up. So some of these pairs are maybe, yes, suggesting that, are we getting some form of short-term bottom from this US dollar sell-off? But of course, when the news comes out tonight, that could destroy that once more. Or maybe we get US dollar positive news tonight, which is going to start to see price move back up and fill these imbalances. All right, last pair, dollar yen, or dollar yen and gold we'll go through. All right, so the monthly charts. We're having obviously a heavy sell-off, one heavy monthly candle, but of course, that doesn't necessarily change the trend at the moment. we're going to have to see a lot more of monthly declines to change trend after what we've been seeing to the upside. But of course, we failed at this top in the short term. Weekly trend structure is still up. And we're at a very good level of weekly support. And the 62 level is that where support's coming in. Daily, so having that pause at the moment. Is it pausing to break lower, or are we getting ready now on the support level to move higher? 4-hour structure at the moment was maybe starting to form a higher bottom, but obviously with the euro dollar moving up, this has popped down. So it's got a little bit more messy again. So the structure on the 4 hour is not suggesting an uptrend, but it is clearly bouncing on support again. And if you take that whole range there, we're probably at a 62 level with weekly supports. So that is an area where the market could hold today to move up, especially after the news coming in later. Slightly saying you could view the dollar yen monthly as just filled an imbalance with the previous chart. On the monthly, let's have a look at where the imbalances are. Yeah, we had, you're correct. We had an imbalance there on the monthly that we've just filled, which was just there. All right, so look at the weekly. There's still a bit of an imbalance. Just there on the weekly. And it's a bit lower down. There's still a little bit of imbalance there on the daily. All right. So it's definitely come down to fill an imbalance. It doesn't have to fill all the imbalance on what we're seeing on the day chart. It's definitely filled the monthly one, so well spotted. And we can see it's definitely at a very good level of support. Okay, from the weekly structure. So the last similar weekly structure that we had, let's go back to the weekly chart. Last similar weekly structure we had. Weekly support, 62% fib. What are we seeing right now? I didn't want to move that line, but let me put it back in. So the last time we had a pullback, we were at 62% fib, weekly supports, 139.388. So again, we're at 62% and support. It's not quite overlapping as nicely as the last one. However, it's very similar in terms of 62% retracement. We are holding above weekly support there, the weekly top. So it is a very nice level, but maybe we need to see at least a nice clean 4-hour uptrend to form. Otherwise, you might be guessing a little bit down here at the moment. All right, of course, you can be trading at support with 100 pip stop, trading that way, 100 pip stop entry, but you know, to the upside, we can see quite clear there on the 4-hour chart that there are imbalances from right there all the way down to there at the moment. Big imbalance that, you know, potentially could get filled to the upside. So, you know, if I was a betting man, I might say, okay, I could bet $1 on that. But I might just want to see a little bit more 4-hour positive structure to say, okay, the bottom's coming in, especially with the news item coming out. All right, gold. So it looks very bullish, doesn't it, on the monthly chart at the moment with that complete failure of broken monthly support. So I don't trade gold, so it's not going to worry me what gold does. It's always worth having your monthly chart. See this level here, 1790.61. All right, so the weekly trend is down, but that's a very strong corrective candle. And the weekly trend is up now. And of course, the day trend will be up. And I'm just going to refine that monthly level to this level here, this weekly level, 1786.74. So it's that level of resistance. So, I mean, probably you've got, even if we're having a whole change in trend at the moment on a number of these currency pairs, let's say the pairs to the US dollar change trend and they're moving up, they're at resistance, a lot of the pairs, or they're way overextended and they're not in areas where you want to be a buyer. Same with gold here. If this has changed its trend now, so we know the monthly is having a rally, the weekly is in an uptrend, and the day is in an uptrend, this isn't where you want to be buying, is it? It's certainly a good level to take your profit at the moment. And then the question would be, well, if I can't be a buyer here, should I try to sell? I mean, I would much rather see some glaringly obvious reason to suggest that, yes, we're topping out. I mean, I can draw a fib from that top to the low. If we started to maybe form some 4-hour structure underneath that 79% level, we started to look, bearish to the downside, while we could be, moving back down in the short term. It's very difficult. The monthly trend is clearly down. Weekly, daily trends are up, and now we're at resistance at the others. We were down at support in some form. Now we're at resistance. So I don't buy into resistance. We're having a big spike up there at the moment on the current candle. Maybe we're folks breaking last week's high. Maybe, maybe we're holding at that resistance level, fraction short of, to trade all the way back down. Slav, I know you trade gold, so I don't know what your interpretation is. But, I mean, weekly, daily, and 4-hour structure is still up. Daily and weekly structure isn't going to change anytime soon. Monthly structure is down. So the first structure that you could maybe trade to the downside if you wanted to would be the 4-hour. So you need to start to look for 4-hour structure that tells you, yes, the sellers are in control up at this high level, close to resistance, to trade back down. All right. And the first significant level of support would be last month's high here, which is at 1729. Because that could definitely be support for then to move back up. So it all depends whether you can construct something to trade down, but next support to watch if we move back down is 1729, that top there, which is this top here. All right. I mean, that is rather bullish. It's just not in the best area to start to think about buying. So it's a great area to think about starting to maybe take profits at, or lock in profits in case it can't move above your resistance level. So, I mean, look at all these rallies that we've been having. This is the largest rally out of all those rallies, okay? We just... all right, so that was the biggest rally. And, that's much bigger now. Of course, we don't want to get too short too soon, because what could be playing out here is this, there's always this pattern here that may be playing out right now, where we had kind of this double bottom. All right, so if that is running out, even though the monthly trend is down. Here, draw the fib the other way. Then if that is a true double bottom, then the 200% level is at 1844. So even if it is a double bottom, you want to be getting in within by the 79% level down here somewhere, not up here. All right, because I'm getting into the areas on the fib tool there where people take profit, and we're at weekly resistance. So then potentially we could be going up to that 1844 level, profit target for the double bottom, but it's not the time to be getting in, it's the time to be managing your trade, isn't it? All right, so you can look for weakness on the 4-hour chart here. Do bear in mind there's that potential double bottom in play. All right, there's always two sides of the coin a lot of the time. Is the double bottom now in play for, yes, a move up higher still to top out, or this range that we're trading in here, are we going to top out and start to move below the 79% level? All right, so you have to work out what side you're on. Slide is saying you can also draw a down channel on daily. All right, so then gold's popped above the channel. Yeah, I mean, it's well and truly popped above that channel that I'm drawing. I mean, it's well and truly on a day chart in an uptrend. It's just a question of, it's elongated. It could move a little bit higher with that double bottom. You know, you just have to sit on your hands at the moment and say, okay, there is no signal to buy there. It's way too high up. So what is your signal to do something? I'm not seeing a signal to do anything at the moment. So, but you might start to see a failure here. You might start to see 4-hour structure telling you that we're topping out. So, you know, you can just, of course, keep watching until you see something. That's what we should be doing. We should have clear, precise rules of how you want to trade and what is your trade setup, and you're just watching until you see it. And my whole philosophy is I like to trade up from support or down from resistance, generally with a trend. And yes, I like to see a signal that, okay, maybe the market's telling me to trade down from resistance or up from support. So I need a trigger. So I'm not seeing a trigger to do anything there, but I can clearly see that, yes, we might be at an area where the market could turn. All right, everybody, any questions? Well, let's just go through what's going on at the moment. Having a bit more pop up. I know the Aussie dollar on my other screen is getting back up to the high of the day. And as I said, we haven't quite hit yet the 62 level. So maybe it wants to hit the 62 level before it starts to top out, or maybe it wants to go higher. So I'm not quite seeing yet that I want to look to engage now where it is. But if I start to see it hit 62 and start to falter, you know, it's trading at 67.60. That level's at 67.67. You don't have to look to trade so close to the level where it fails. I mean, over the course of the next week, we might see price start to move back below 67. And then we start to see nice structure forming where 67 is starting to be clear resistance for a move below that level. But of course, first of all, we need to see where is it failing, or where does it want to fail. And we go back to the monthly chart. You know, there's been a number of rallies, and this can be the same for any pair at the moment. You know, there's been a number of rallies where there was this top to that low, and that was only a 50% rally. Then there was that top to that low. So that's what it looked like on the weekly here. before that big move down. And, you know, when we're coming up here, the day chart trend is up. So then you have to start to look down on the 4-hour chart for structure to tell you that, okay, maybe we're topping out here in between. This obviously topped out in between the 62 to 79. But the day trend was up at the time where the top's coming in. So that's the current range at the moment. And of course, yes, the day trend is up. Like it was up here, like it was up here when it did that rally. The first telltale sign will be on the 4-hour chart where you start to see structure break down. So not seeing structure break down yet, and you don't have to be engaging within the first 10 pips of where it could be topping out at, but you need to have a clear signal to say, okay, maybe we are topping out. I did think we were maybe topping out at this resistance, but of course we moved above that level. So just watch for the 4-hour structure to tell you the story. We can revisit that on Thursday, or I might be revisiting the Telegram through the week, depending on what I see. Right at the moment, though, I'm not seeing a reason to sell it. And I don't want to be buying in this area where potentially the higher time frame lower top can be forming. So if you were getting long this pair, you should have been long, you know, back in here somewhere. Not at the latter end of the upward move. You know, we're up now 4 days. One of them being, well, it was almost an inside day. One of those days being a pause day, but 4 days, so being a very strong move up. You know, you don't want to be buying at the top of the move, but you do need a clear reason to be a seller. And we don't have a reason there, but we might have over the next couple of trading days. And all depending on what the, we do have a bit of an imbalance there as well. It's worth just highlighting. So the top of that imbalance comes in at 68.23. So still got a bit to go if it wants to fill that imbalance. All right, any more questions before we conclude? And before we conclude, I'll wait to see if anything comes in. And tomorrow I'm going to go through support and resistance. And this month's topics are really about, I'm going to give you some simple strategies that you can be forward testing. I'm going to talk about support and resistance and just trading support and resistance tomorrow. Simple entry technique that you could be using as a strategy to forward test over 20, 40, 60 trades to see whether a very simple technique can be the technique that you're trading the market with. I mean, I can show you a number of techniques to trade, but ultimately you have to decide yourself what do you see easily from one day to the next? What resonates with you, when you're looking at the chart, you can see it very easily. You're comfortable with the whole concept. You can see it working. And, you think, okay, I like to look at that. I can see it every day, or, I can quite clearly see it when it sets up. And it suits my lifestyle, the time I have available to trade, so on and so forth. Okay, so you have to decide what kind of technique would, work best for you around all those questions. All right, everybody, so we obviously have the news coming out. Just to refresh, 11:30 p.m. my time. So if you're in New South Wales, for example, it's going to be 12:30, which kind of stings if you have to be up early in the morning. So I don't have to be up early in the morning, so it won't worry me too much. But 11:30 for me is getting, I much prefer it when the US news is at 10:30 rather than 11:30. There we go. Can't do anything to change it. All right, everybody, thanks very much. If you have the time, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Annie.